Okay. Everyone.
You know, if you ever did something like that to my face, I would kill you.
Yo. Tap in.
Is the video uploaded?
Yeah. No, I'm streaming again. The video's gonna be uploaded soon.
I bet.
Tap in. Okay. How are we feeling, dudes? How are we feeling? So the video has an hour until it's uploaded. Very good video that's coming out. Excuse me. Yeah. Just wait until this fucker is uploaded, you know? We got Grayson in chat. Classic viewer. What should we watch? What should we watch? What are we thinking? mm. Mm. Can't answer that right now. Bro, my friend sent me videos of him at this dubstep concert. Bro, this shit seems so lit. Oh my god. Bro, I wish I was there. That seems so sick. Shit, I don't know. We need to watch something interesting. Oh, okay. We're gonna scroll for a bit. Hold on. Let me just get it recently uploaded. The Lost Goosebumps books. Bro. Hold up. Dude, how is that shit? Bro, my friend just called me. He's at this dub concert. It's making me jelly. Let me adjust this. Okay. Alright. Okay. Jeez, it feels like there's nothing interesting to watch. What the fuck? Do we go for a classic and just watch a body cam video? Do we go with a classic? I don't know. Is it just this account? Do I have any other accounts? Let's see BBC Nation. Let's see if we got anything interesting on this account. Oh, we could check a TV video. That dude's chill. Yeah. The most traumatizing cult initiations. You know, this is gonna be an interesting one. Alright. Oh fuck, why am I loading up Crunker? Fuck. Okay. This is what we watching. This one low-key seems mad interesting. But yeah. I just realized y'all probably couldn't see what I was even looking at. Alright. Is that a good enough size for the shits? Y'all are complaining that this shit's too big, so like y'all like it like this? Is this better? Or what? Alright. I'm gonna take that as a yes. Okay. Oh wait, did I even start recording? Okay, now we're recording, okay.
Joining a cult isn't always as simple as listening to a charismatic leader or believing in a strange ideology. Sometimes, before you're even let inside, you have to prove your loyalty in the most incomprehensible ways. In this video, we'll cover a cult that forced women to hand over black male material before branding them like a cow with a red-hot iron, another where followers willingly castrated themselves following alien salvation.
I can never willingly cut off my dick. Like, pay me $1 billion, I will not do that. That's an act that I cannot, like, bring myself to do. Or my balls. Like, either one. Like, that's not happening.
And one that locked children in rooms for days while pumping them full of LSD as part of their initiation. These are the most traumatic cult initiations ever documented. Get branded and give nudes as collateral. NXIVM. Let me introduce you to NXIVM, pronounced NXIVM, a multi-level marketing company and self-help organization co-founded in 1998 by Rainier and a former psychiatric nurse named Nancy Salzman. Rainier styled himself as a New Age philosopher who was heavily influenced by Ayn Rand, and inside the group they called him Vanguard. His whole pitch was personal and professional development through eliminating your psychological and emotional barriers. People really bought it, and estimated 16,000 people enrolled in his courses, with some of them paying tens of thousands of dollars. And the truth is that there's nothing wrong with eliminating your psychological and emotional barriers, but I highly doubt that the effective way to do so is through a multi-level marketing scheme that pushes members to take classes that cost as much as $5,000, and then pushes them to take more classes to move up the ranks and recruit other people to create more revenue. A thing that, according to an FBI affidavit, left some members in debt to NXIVM itself. Have that in mind, because these are people who are already financially tangled up before the real dark stuff even starts, which was DOS. That's the secret subgroup the FBI alleges Rainier started, and the name stands for a phrase roughly translated from Latin as Lord over the Obedient Female Companions. It was pitched to women as a sisterhood and a sorority, a women's empowerment.
My candle just started burning like crazy. I almost just caught my wood on fire. Fuck, where's my headphones? Yikes. It could have been bad. What the fuck? I lost my headphones during that shit. So my headphones are nowhere to be. Oh, there they are. Fuck. Okay, I'm just stupid. Okay, we're back, chat. Okay.
Which was DOS. That's the secret classes that cost as much as $5,000, and then pushes them to take more classes to move up the ranks and recruit other people to create more revenue. A thing that, according to an FBI affidavit, left some members in debt to NXIVM itself. Have that in mind, because these are people who are already financially tangled up before the real dark stuff even starts, which was DOS. That's the secret subgroup the FBI alleges Rainier started, and the name stands for a phrase roughly translated from Latin as Lord over the Obedient Female Companions. It was pitched to women as a sisterhood and a sorority, a women's empowerment thing, masters and slaves, and the line they used was that it would teach women to be, quote, the master of your own life. What the women were not told was that Rainier was at the top of the entire thing. So
Damn,
what was the entry fee? Before you were even told what the group was, you had to hand over collateral. And collateral is such a clean little word for what it actually meant. Lauren Salzman, who was the first line master and testified against Rainier, described it as information that was so damaging that she would rather die than have it released. She detailed how she and her mother Nancy had allegedly worked with Rainier and others to give a woman Valium against her will after the woman started acting erratically at an NXIVM event. Rainier wanted the woman to be able to sleep, so Nancy tried to give her the drug, and men eventually had to hold the woman down and force the pill into her mouth. The Valium got crushed up into scrambled eggs to feed her. Salzman offered that up as her collateral, and it got rejected. But why? Because it included compromising information about Rainier. So you can't put up collateral, you're damning a situation that you don't want out there. You can't submit it if it makes the main guy look bad. There you go. So since she didn't have a promising collateral, you know, something that they liked, she was told that, oh, here's the other option. You could just send us your nudes. There you go. And that was the design, really. Recruits went through 5 stages, starting as a prospect, handing over collateral to prove commitment. Terrible. Then once you were actually in the group, you provided even more material to become fully collateralized, which meant you could be blackmailed. Salzman collected from her own slaves things like nude photographs, videos with disparaging comments the slaves made about their own family members, access to bank accounts, and permission to take possession of property like cars and other personal belongings. But that's only the first part. Once you were in, usually around a few days, you would get branded. The women strip naked, gather in a circle around a massage table, and hold down whoever is being branded, pulling her arms above her head. Before it starts, you have to kneel and say, "Master, please brand me. It would be an honor I want to wear for the rest of my life." Then a cauterizing pen etches a mark near your hip. The mark, by the way, was Rainier's initials, KAR. And then, after all that, they were told to send photos of their brands healing every single day for about 6 weeks. When they were finally brought to justice, Rainier's lawyer argued the whole way that it was consensual and that DOS was a pro-woman group, but the jury took less than 5 hours to find Rainier guilty of all counts of sex trafficking and the other charges accusing him of coercing women into sex.
Nice hot. Where'd you get it?
Depop, $12.
Castrated bodily containers, Heaven's Gate cult. Alright, so Heaven's Gate, probably the most popular cult out there, and I know that this has been talked about to death, but as much as it has been talked about on this specific channel, we've only talked about it 2 times. This is the 3rd time, and the first one was just visiting their website about 4 or 5 years ago. But yeah, if you know everything about Heaven's Gate cult, don't be shy to skip through the video and just skip the segment and go to the next chapter. I really don't mind. So back in 1997, everyone was horrified by the news reporting on 39 people in matching black tracksuits and Nike sneakers lying dead in a mansion in San Diego while waiting for a spaceship behind a comet.
39 men in black tracksuits. This must be the largest group of Russian teenagers ever. Jesus, what an odd
Word quickly
sighting.
spread about a cult called Heaven's Gate that believed the flying saucer was traveling behind the Hale-Bopp comet, leading them to choose to leave their physical bodies behind to find redemption in an extraterrestrial kingdom of heaven. However, what they were asked to do to prove they were serious about following these leaders to the literal end often gets left as a mere footnote to the mass. So before we get to that, let's take a look at what happened beforehand. The guy at the center of this was Marshall Applewhite, a music professor who had a near-death experience in 1972 and got recruited into the cult by one of his nurses, a woman named Bonnie Lou Nettles. His sister, Louise Winant, later told ABC that her brother had studied at a theological seminary in Richmond, Virginia, and had gone on to teach and sing in the Houston Grand Opera. So, opera, seminary, teacher, not really the resume you'd expect, but he and Nettles renamed themselves. She was T, spelled T-I, he was Do, spelled D-O. And together they called themselves the Two after the 2 lampstands prophesied in the Bible. The core belief was that human bodies are just containers, like in a sense of vehicles and shells, something you could abandon in favor of a higher physical existence. So, since it was considered something disposable, the logical conclusion for Applewhite was that it didn't matter what happened to it on Earth, even if you're still inhabiting it. For example, Applewhite advocated sexual abstinence, and several male cult members followed his example by undergoing castration operations, including Applewhite himself. But that was only the loudest part about it. Everything about the group was pointed at erasing you as a person. Both the male and female members had a unisex look, buzz-cut hair, and shapeless black shirts with mandarin collars.
Jeez.
People who had contact with them
Shit
said they
looks
referred to
creepy.
themselves as monks. Nothing inside the house indicated the members exhibited any
These are
individuality
not
at
damn
all.
monks.
No entertainment except for about 100 homemade videotapes similar to the goodbye tape they made. And they were instructed to not develop one-on-one relationships and did not share their deepest, most individual thoughts with each other. The androgynous look worked so well that when investigators first found the bodies, they mistakenly identified all 39 of them as
If
young.
you're just ever in a group and they like ask for like really personal information, even if they're like just like I guess taunting you enough to like make you want to give in, like why would you give that shit? That's like, you don't know, like even if you're really close with a person, like what they might use that information for. Like there's certain shit I only tell some people because I know like I can trust them. No, I feel like it's kind of natural selection a bit if you're like sharing some information, though I still feel bad for victims, you know? Like a lot of it is manipulation, and like I haven't been in a situation like this where I've experienced it, but I feel like I feel like in some scenarios it's just like natural selection.
Men. They were 21 women and 18 men, ranging in age from 26 to 72. So what actually pulled the trigger? In 1975, Applewhite and Nettles persuaded a group of 20 people from Oregon to abandon their families and possessions and move to eastern Colorado, promising a spacecraft would take them to the Kingdom of Heaven. But guess what? The spacecraft never arrived and the membership shrank. Then in 1985, Nettles, who Applewhite called his sexless partner, died of cancer, which awkwardly was very hard to explain to people who'd been promised alien abduction. Then in 1995, the comet Hale-Bopp was discovered, and the members became convinced an alien spacecraft was on its way to Earth, hidden behind it from human detection. In October of 1996, Applewhite rented the big house in Rancho Santa Fe, telling the owner his group consisted of Christian-based angels. And in late March of 1997, as Hale-Bopp made its closest approach to Earth on a 4,000-year orbit, Applewhite and 38 followers drank a lethal mixture of phenobarbital and vodka. Did they reach the Kingdom of Heaven? We don't know that, but the 39 vehicles definitely remained in that house in California. Flirty fishing, aka FFing, by fisherwomen, children of God. What if I told you that to be a good member of this church, women were handed a monthly form to fill out about the men they'd have sex with? Yes, a body count tracker. But it wasn't called that, it had a propped up name. It was called the Monthly FF Witnessing Report. And it asked for the occupation of each man, with tick box categories like government official, professional, laborer. It asked for the, and I quote, number of times loved mate sexually, and you to name your top 3 FF lovers of the month. Have that bureaucracy in mind while I go back to the start. David Berg started this thing in the late 1960s. He was a former Christian and Missionary Alliance pastor from Oakland, and he'd followed his dad into that denomination, getting his first pastorate in Arizona in 1949. Then, in 1950, he had a falling out with church leadership and resigned, which left him bitter and gave him a permanent distaste for organized religion. Shortly after that, he started believing God had a special destiny for him and began calling himself a prophet for this generation. By 1968, he moved to Huntington Beach with his wife and 4 kids, and built a commune of 35 charter members out of the youth counterculture. His followers called him Father Moses or King David, but mostly just Mo. He talked to his people through the Mo letters, which followers considered equal in authority to the Bible. Roughly 500 of those letters discuss flirty fishing. Now look at how sick this is. The term comes from Matthew 4:19, where Jesus tells 2 fishermen he'll make them fishers of men. Berg took that and figured out the women were the bait, and the men outside the group were the fish. He built the whole practice off his consort Maria's experience with a man named Arthur that she seduced in England into joining the group. In the 1974 letter Flirty Little Fish, he wrote about Maria hooking men like this: hook them through their flesh. Crucify her flesh, Lord, on the barb of thy spirit. O God, even if it penetrate and crucify her flesh, impale her on the point of thy spirit that she may die, that those that feed of her flesh may be caught to live. O God, help her, O Jesus, to be willing to be the bait. You know, sometimes I hate that I have to read this. I don't like everything I say on this channel, obviously. Jesus Christ. Like top 5 worst things I've had to read out loud. And it wasn't even that bad, but it's still just so icky. Like, it's just gross, man. And well, did it work? Well, you tell me. Between 1974 and 1987, members had sexual contact with 223,989 people while FFing, you know, flirty fishing. Almost all adult female disciples were involved to some degree, but the irony is that it barely worked as recruitment. It probably wasn't very successful at bringing new people in, but it was a primary source of financial support and political protection. Women established long-term relationships with wealthy men who provided money, housing, legal advice, help with immigration, sometimes leaving their husbands and children for weeks or months at a time. Then in 1978, Berg dropped a letter called Make It Pay, advising the women to get money for their services. Escort work may have crossed the line, but they insisted FFing itself wasn't prostitution because the goal was always to bear witness for Jesus. Things got a bit complicated when STD started spreading due to the excessive amount of sex surrounding the cult, but then Berg published a letter called Afflictions, where he reasoned that Jesus had probably caught a venereal disease at some point too, so there was no shame in it. And the women should keep—
listen. The Holy Spirit, Jesus, you know, that he just had STDs. So it's not bad if all the women in my group also obtain STDs from my immoral practices that I preach to everyone. Like, what type of, like, I feel like this is a case where it's like natural selection a bit, you know? Like, if you're following this, dude, like, you have to be an idiot. Like, there's no way there's anyone with, like, higher than like room temperature IQ that's doing any of this. Like, I swear, like, you have to have some like level-headedness not to fall for something like this. Like, even though like it's like 2 sides to the story, you know, because at the same time there could just be a crazy amount of manipulation, you know. This dude could just be like who's that one fucker on TikTok that everyone talks about? Yeah, this fucker. Yeah, he might just be this dude. You don't know, bro. He might just be this fucker. Yeah.
Going even at the risk of afflictions. By the way, the Children of God cult got shut down in 1987, but not because of any of this, because of AIDS. Drink cult leaders' bathwater and blood.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base44, a complete AI creation platform. Describe what you want, and watch it take shape. You can plan, customize, and expand in any direction. From tools built for one to platforms ready for many. From passion projects to enterprise-grade systems. Everything is built in and ready to launch.
Aum Shinrikyo. You know how OF models turned their bathwater into a highly marketable product? Well, it turns out a man in Japan was way ahead of his time. The only real difference, I think, is that while those creators on the blue site are selling you a bit of pleasure, this cult convinced people that the end was near and that joining them was the only way to be saved, all for a hefty price and a ritual that involved drinking some very expensive blood. The man behind this is Shoko Asahara. He was born into a poor family in southern Japan and sold quack medicine before opening a one-room yoga school in Tokyo, which is the thing that eventually turned into Aum Shinrikyo. It means supreme truth. It started in the 1980s as a spiritual group mixing Hindu and Buddhist ideas, then worked in bits of apocalyptic Christian prophecy, and Asahara declared himself to be both Christ and the first enlightened one since Buddha. He got official religious status in Japan in 1989, spoke at universities, wrote books. At its peak, Aum had around 10,000 Japanese members and another 30,000 in Russia. His pitch was that his devotees could read minds and levitate, and thousands of alienated young Japanese raised on comic book superheroes believed him. A lot of them were students at elite universities, young people from academically pressured backgrounds, staring down equally pressured careers, and the cult offered them something more meaningful. But let's define that, more meaningful. Because while Aum preached that its followers should renounce materialism, he still handed them a menu the moment they tried to join. The blood initiation, where you drink blood said to have come from Asahara, ran $10,000. Bardo's enlightenment, which was an intravenous injection of an unknown substance, cost $3,000. A small pin with their logo engraved on it was a relative bargain at $1,000. And a ritual where you gain spiritual energy by touching the forehead of a member with a higher spiritual level than you was $500. There was also a headset you could rent for $10,000 a month that would supposedly synchronize your brainwaves with the gurus. Oh, and the bathwater, of course. For $2,000, you could buy a 7-ounce.
How could just like random people be funding this? Like you must be like giving your whole life, like all your paychecks to this, because there's no way.
Bottle of the miracle pond, as he called it. The leaders used bath water said to have curative powers. Now what happens if you can't afford the menu? Initiates who couldn't pay for the services they received were encouraged to take more and then forced to join the cult, which immediately sent them down a downward spiral of debt. The bathwater was the friendly end of what they do to a body, by the way. Followers were starved, doped with LSD, and forced to undergo bizarre initiations. There was a ritual called thermotherapy, where followers got, quote, purified in a bath of scalding water. That one has killed at least one follower. And the cult used giant shipping containers as prisons and torture chambers for anyone who tried to leave. Enemies got murdered and incinerated in purpose-built microwave ovens. And that brings us to the morning of March 20th, 1995, when 5 bags of liquid nerve agent were left on the Tokyo subway during rush hour by members of the cult. The toxic struck people down in seconds, choking and vomiting, some blinded and paralyzed, 13 died, and at least 5,800 were injured across 5 coordinated attacks on 3 train lines.
Bro, you don't hear about this shit. Like, I know this is like probably old news, but like even when this shit was happening, like on the news in America, you wouldn't hear about this. And oh, my fucking pop filter. Like, I feel like that's kind of crazy to think about.
Asahara was executed on July 6 of 2018, along with several of his followers. That miracle pond wasn't exactly what you'd call miraculous. Watch the Believer's horror film on repeat, Matamoros. Now for this case, I bring you a recruitment method that nobody would believe you if you pitched it. Before you got let in, you had to sit down and watch a horror movie, and then watch it again, and again, and again. The film was The Believers, a 1987 thriller about a cult in New York City that practiced human sacrifice for money and influence. Sarah Aldrey would show it to new people as the first step of bringing them in, and then Constanzo's members were forced to watch it over and over again, specifically to indoctrinate them into accepting that human sacrifice was necessary. But before we go too far into this, first, who were these two? Well, Adolfo Constanzo was a Cuban-American born in Miami in 1962. His father died when he was a baby, his mother took him to Puerto Rico and remarried. They came back to Florida in 1972, and then his stepfather died as well and left behind a large inheritance. His mother married again, this time to a man involved in drug trafficking and the cult. And that stepfather gave him a philosophy he carried for the rest of his life, which was that he should let non-believers, quote, themselves with drugs, while he profited off their foolishness. Around the same time, his mother decided he had psychic abilities and introduced him to Palo Mayombe. an Afro-Caribbean religion involving animal sacrifice. He worked his way up from Palero to Padrino, which is the high priest status. In 1984, he moved to Mexico City to be a tarot card reader, and it worked. He'd been a male model, he was charismatic, and his reputation for predicting the future and doing ritual cleansings made him popular with drug dealers, musicians, and police officers. Followers called him the Godfather. Sarah Aldry, meanwhile, is the strange part. She was a Matamoros native, an honors student, and a cheerleader at Texas Southmost College across the border in Brownsville. Students and teachers at her college remembered her as a friendly, studious physical education student with no signs whatsoever of anything wrong. Meanwhile, she was the cult's main recruiter, and investigators believe her charm helped her lure men into the group or set them up to be abducted and killed. Now back to that movie. The whole belief system was a protection racket with a religion attached. Constanzo taught that human sacrifice gave the people doing it strength, abundance, and immunity from law enforcement and injury. But then here's the reason any of us know the story at all. Mark Kilroy. He was 21, a University of Texas pre-med student. At the time, he was on spring break with 3 friends. On the night of March 13th, 1989, they crossed into Matamoros on foot, along with about 15,000 other tourists on the main strip that night. Around 2 a.m., his friends split up for a minute, and when they got back, Kilroy was gone. What happened? Well, Constanzo had ordered his men to go find a white male to sacrifice. Kilroy got lured towards a pickup truck, 2 men wrestled him in, and when the driver stopped a couple blocks later to catch his breath, Kilroy broke loose and ran. He got intercepted by another car of their allies and taken at gunpoint. They drove him out to Santa Elena Ranch, and the next morning the caretaker fed him bread, eggs, and water, and the captors told him he wasn't in any danger. About 12 hours after the kidnapping, Constanzo showed up. He tortured and sodomized him through the night, then walked him out to a field and killed him with a machete blow to the back of the neck and head. His brain was boiled in a metal pot Constanzo used to stew human and animal remains. And that isn't even the worst thing they did to his body, because they also ran a wire down his spinal column before burying him so that once the body was decomposed, the bones could be pulled out of the soil easily. All because the cult members were going to wear them as necklaces to ward off danger and injury. The police found the grave because the ends of the wire were sticking out of the dirt. By the time they finished digging on April 11th, they pulled up 15 mutilated bodies, all male, killed over about 9 months. People say life imitates art, but maybe let's leave thrillers out of this.
Damn, man.
Alone and on LSD, the family cult Australia. Hey guys, so before we get into this one, I do want to let you guys know that in case you guys ever wonder about my opinions on topics or my personality, I do have a second channel, and that is where I post my streaming clips. It's very difficult to promote stuff on this channel as I talk about very serious topics. It's very difficult to have my personality in this channel because, I mean, wouldn't it be weird if I'm like, huh, funny joke, and then I'm like, okay, 2 bodies were discovered. Like, it just, I have to be mature on this channel, and I feel like you don't get to see my personality. And so, in case you're wondering if I do have one, well, the answer is yes. Tubbington is the name of the channel. If you want to go see my opinions on topics, my reactions, you can do so over there. The profile picture is my head. Like I said, it's difficult to promote myself in these videos, but that's for anyone who cares about me. Now let's get on with the actual topic. Do you remember these pictures of children with the same white blonde hair and the same clothes? I personally hadn't seen it until now, but apparently it's a famous picture on the internet. That's The Family, the Australian cult that operated outside Melbourne, and those photos are basically the reason anyone remembers this case at all. The visual is so strange that it does most of the work, but the pictures don't tell you what happened to those kids around the time they turned 14. When they reached that age, they were formally initiated into the cult by being given huge, relentless doses of LSD in trips that often lasted several days. And in some accounts of it, the kid would be given the dose and then left alone in a room for a period of time, only getting visits from Anne Hamilton Byron or from one of the cult psychiatrists. But let's go back just to refresh our memory. The woman at the top was born Evelyn Edwards in 1921. Then in her mid-30s, she found yoga, which was only just arriving at the West at that point, and still felt exotic and mysterious to everyone. By the early 1960s, she was teaching it to a middle-aged woman in Melbourne's well-heeled suburbs, and she was apparently very good at it. She was clever and intuitive, and knew how to find the chinks in people's armor. And often, these were wives in unhappy marriages whose children had grown up and were looking for new meaning. Divorce still wasn't really accepted, and she'd encourage the women to leave their husbands and join her. Her opening line when she met somebody she wanted was apparently, "I've been waiting for you. You are special." Of course they were special, she was building a religion. She recruited Dr. Raynor Johnson, a physicist from Melbourne University, that was completely, smitten by her. He experimented with LSD with her, purely in the interest of scientific research, he said, and wrote in his diary that her face became divinely beautiful with sublime authority. He later wrote that she was unquestionably the wisest, the most gracious and generous soul I have ever met. He went further than that, actually. He had declared her the new Messiah. That respectability is what let the whole thing scale, because with a Melbourne University academic vouching for her, she could pull in exactly the crowd she needed, which was wealthy New Age seeking professionals, doctors, psychiatrists, lawyers, and nurses, social workers. She'd give her sermons, or discourses as she called them, from a purple throne in a lodge that followers had paid for. She had preached a mix of Christianity, Eastern mysticism, and apocalyptic prophecy, and she put herself on the same level as Jesus, Buddha, and Krishna. Now remember the professions. Doctors, nurses, lawyers, midwives, social workers. Why is that? Because it was like a horrible little assembly line. Babies born in cult hospitals delivered by cult midwives, handed over to cult social workers, then cult lawyers would falsify the adoption paperwork. In all, 28 children ended up in the family, and all of them were told Hamilton Byron was their biological mother. Even their hair was dyed blonde to convince them they were actually all related. The kids were kept in a lodge at Lake Eildon. Day to day, they were raised by quote aunties, middle-aged female followers who enforced the punishments partly because they were scared of losing their own place in her affections. Kids got starved for days over things like getting their clothes dirty or forgetting to switch a
situation like this, I can't even blame the victims because they had no control over this. This just sucks.
light off. When Hamilton Byron was there and a kid stepped out of line, she'd often beat them herself, and her weapon of choice was a stiletto shoe. Meanwhile, they were being dosed with Valium and Mogadon daily to keep them docile right up until 14, which is when the LSD started. The whole thing came apart because of one teenager. In 1987, Sarah Moore, then 14, got expelled from the group for being rebellious towards Hamilton Byron, and she went to the police. And on August 14th, a raid was carried out, and the children were taken into protective custody. Hamilton Byron fled the country and hid for 2 years before being arrested in 1993 in the Catskills in upstate New York. She and her husband got a 5,000 Australian dollar fine and no jail time. She was never held to account for the child
That's child abuse, bro.
abuse or any of the rest of it.
Yeah.
Wear black and drink each other's blood. Vampire Clan. Alright, so this one is different from the rest in the video because instead of thousands of followers, this is only about a handful of broke teenagers from Murray, Kentucky who thought they were vampires. But while the initiation ritual was two kids at a tombstone with razor blades, this whole thing ends with 2 people dead on a couch and in a shower in Florida, which is why I'm telling you all about it in the first place. The way in, aka the initiation, was called crossing over, and the way it worked was you'd meet your sire, cut your upper arm with a regular razor blade, and then he'd drink your blood from you until the bleeding stopped, and then you'd drink from him. Rod Farrell did that, and the guy who did it for him was an older boy named Stephen Murphy, who went by Jaden. And he'd known Rod for about a year and a half by then. To Murphy, this was a binding contract, and he described giving blood as the most precious gift you can give somebody. Now the background. Rod Farrell was born in Murray, Kentucky in 1980 to teenage parents, and his dad left to join the military shortly after he was born. His mother, Sandra Gibson, raised him, moving back and forth between.
This dude looks silly as shit. You take your mugshot and you try to smirk. This might be the most pathetic mugshot I think I've seen in my life. Like, I don't know what dude was trying to convey with this image. He just looked like a dork.
Florida and Murray, staying in public housing when they were in Kentucky, where she supported them as an exotic dancer. And as a matter of fact, it was his mother who introduced him to Vampire the Masquerade, the role-playing game he became obsessed with and where he got the character he claimed to actually be, a 500-year-old vampire named Vesigo. And she was into it herself. Sasha Gibson later pleaded guilty to trying to solicit sex with a 14-year-old boy while crossing him over to become a vampire, and prosecutors had her letters to him, which included the line, "I long to be near you for your embrace." Yes, to become a vampire, a part of the family, immortal and truly yours forever. It didn't help either that the kids around him were all in roughly the same boat. Scott Anderson grew up poor with an alcoholic father and used to bring leftovers home from his McDonald's job so his younger brothers could eat. Dana Cooper, who worked at a Kentucky Walmart and lived alone in an apartment, told authorities flat out that she became a vampire to have friends. And I think that was basically the recruitment pitch, honestly, belonging to something. The clan met at an abandoned cement structure in the woods in an area called...
When, like, you're... humans naturally crave, social attention, but especially when you're, like, around this age, you just want to belong to some sort of group. You just want to have people that accept you, just naturally. So, it makes sense that they can pull in people with a pitch like that, because a lot of people, what they really desire is just, praise or just belonging. And so they gained that through this.
Land between the lakes, which they called the Vampire Hotel, where they drink each other's blood among other rituals. But on November 25th, 1996, on the way to New Orleans, they stopped at Heather Wendorf's parents' house. Richard Wendorf, age 49, was asleep on the couch and Ruth was in the shower. Farrell and Anderson came in through the unlocked garage and picked up a crowbar on the way in. Richard was hit 22 times in the face and had 9 burns in the shape of a V, which was said to be Farrell's symbol. Ruth was struck once in the face and 20 times around her head, hard enough to break her brainstem. Turns out, Farrell saw her as a damsel as he was going to rescue, and yeah, killing her parents was the rescue. They got caught 4 days later because one of them called their grandmother in South Dakota, asking for money, and she called the police instead. Farrell initially claimed a rival vampire cult did it, and named Murphy, which Murphy kinda laughed off. He pleaded guilty in 1998 and became the youngest person on Florida's death row before that got reduced to life without parole.
If you're struggling with depression and not feeling the comfort and peace that you need, I invite you to meet with missionaries like me from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Never mind.
We can help you lift
Christian.
your burdens through the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Bamming, aka breaking you down, Black Axe. You've probably gotten an email from these guys, and it's the strangest thing about this whole case. Really. A Nigerian student fraternity that started as a Black Power movement in the 1970s is now, according to American, Canadian, and Italian law enforcement, one of the biggest organized crime networks on the planet, and the way you'd most likely bump into this is your spam folder. But what I want to get to is what you have to survive before you're allowed in. They call it bamming, and it's a night of being beaten, burned, and screamed at by the exact men who then hug you when it's over. Almost like getting jumped into a gang, but like way more extreme. On July 7th of 1977,
Yikes.
9 students at the University of Benin founded the first chapter of the Neo-Black movement of Africa. Nigerian fraternities had been around since the 50s, but the NBM founders thought those groups had gone soft and turned into empty sloganeering, so, inspired by America's Black Panther Party, they picked a more militant path. They pledged to purge Africa of racism and oppression. They called their philosophy Neo-Blackism, and one of the co-founders wrote that they were going to be vanguard in creating a new black nation and would see themselves as leaders of all black men worldwide. They also put out a quarterly magazine full of self-help poetry, and the name of that magazine was Black Axe, and a student named John wanted to be a part of it. Around 2008, on a hill overlooking the city of Joe's, he got handed a shopping list beforehand, which is such a mundane detail for what's coming. Candles, bug spray, a cola nut, razor blades, and 10,000 naira, about 30 bucks, as his fee. Once it got dark, John and 4 other initiates were made to lie on their stomachs in the dirt, pressed shoulder to shoulder, while axemen screamed insults at them and told them they reeked like goats. Some lashed them with sticks. Every axeman walked over their backs 4 times, then somebody lit the bug spray on fire and ran the flames across them. It was 6 hours of that. Then the 5 of them crawled toward a candlelit platform where a white-robed priest was standing with an axe, and the priest said an oath and slapped John to signal his purification, then put the axe on his head and gave him his quote strong name, which is the name of a famous African freedom fighter. Then the men who had spent 6 hours torturing him hugged him and handed him a cup of weed-infused punch. But why does anybody sign up for a night like that? Because of what comes after. Nigeria has the 2nd highest rate of unemployment in the world, and joining can mean protection and business connections. That is what the cult meant. But if you think a cult in Nigeria has nothing to do with you in America, you're probably highly uninformed on matters of digital fraud. Because right after he bammed, John got taught the basics of advanced free fraud, the 419 scam, by a clique of axemen from Enugu. He'd sit in an internet cafe posing as the owner of a lottery, sending thousands of messages to strangers, and by the end of his sophomore year, he had a big sneaker collection and a Mercedes. Scammers picked targets in rich countries, and addresses of marks in the United States, the UK, and Germany filled dozens of spreadsheet pages. In North America alone, the scam pulls in $300 to $500 million a year. There have been arrests all over the world, yet the NBN leadership insists it's a legitimate organization and that the Black Axe is a rogue breakaway group, and they point to their registration and charity work. The US Justice Department strongly disagrees. Self-castration and blood dipping. Cults of
Yeah, now this is gonna be the craziest one. This is what had me startled at the beginning.
Sibylle. We've covered pretty recent cults up until now, but let's talk about one that took place roughly 2,000 years ago. Basically, it makes the rest look like amateurs, and it's wild what they did. To become a priest of Sibylle in ancient Rome, you castrated yourself, and then, at least in the cult's central rite, you climbed down into a trench and let a bull get slaughtered directly on top of you. What? But before going too far, let me back up to how a Phrygian goddess ended up as a mainstream part of a Roman state religion in the first place. The Romans were, as Vice puts it, hyper-aware of being the new civilization on the block compared to their Greek neighbors, and painfully aware that they lifted their state religion and a lot of their culture from the Greeks. Their fix for that was to be obsessed with the idea that Rome had been founded by survivors from Troy, which would give them the same pedigree as everybody around them. And as part of proving that Trojan connection, they adopted a goddess called Cybele out of Anatolia, in what's now Turkey, insisting she was the lost mother goddess of Troy who needed to be reunited with her people. She was introduced in 204 BCE, and the myth that she came with is where the castration thing starts, and it's a lot. In the Romanized version, Cybele is sleeping in the form of a rock when Zeus finds her and tries to rape her, fails, and spills his seed on the ground next to her. She gets pregnant anyway because she's that fertile, and gives birth to a dual-sex monster named Agdistis. The gods are afraid of Agdistis, so they cut off the male organ. An almond tree grows out of it, a river god's daughter takes some of the fruit and puts it in her bosom. The fruit vanishes and she's pregnant. The boy is Attis. He grows up unnaturally beautiful. Agdistis falls in love with him, and when Attis is about to be married off, Agdistis shows up at the wedding. Attis goes mad and cuts off his own genitals, and so does his father-in-law for good measure. So, yeah, 3 castrations in about 1 minute. That's the founding story of the religion. There are other versions floating around, by the way. In one, Attis is a mortal priest castrated by a king as punishment for defending himself against, and Cybele responds by sending a wild boar to wreck the whole region until the locals agree to ritually mourn Attis once a year. In another, he castrates himself willingly to guarantee the land's fertility and takes on a bigender identity so that he can serve Cybele as a priest and lover forever. Whichever version you followed, the entry fee was the same. Cybele's priests were called Galli, and all of them performed voluntary self-castration in honor of Attis as their final initiation into the cult. Afterward, they dressed in women's clothing and presented as women for the rest of their lives. Then it was time for the Tarobalium, which was the cult's central rite, and it goes like this. You dig a trench, put a grate over the top, and the priest gets down in the hole. Then a bull is sacrificed on the grate above him, so all the animal's viscera pours down onto him. He stays there until he's completely soaked, and Prudentius describes it as the priest draining the deep dark blood with every pore. Then the bull's genitals are cut off and thrown into the pit with him. I mean, talk about having an obsession with genitalia. Let's move on to the last one.
Did you know Ashley has Nectar mattresses starting at $649? This 5-layer Nectar mattress helps you sleep cooler and more.
Yikes, man. I mean, yeah, that was kind of as bad as I was thinking it was.
Love bombing recruits. So in this one, we're going to talk more about a tactic rather than a specific cult. Picture this. That guy you met 3 weeks ago who already knows your coffee order, who texts you good morning and good night without fail, who told you on day 4 that he's never felt this way about anyone, who showed up with flowers on a random day for no reason, who says you're his soulmate and he can already picture the wedding. I mean, that guy is a red flag, right? Has to be, because that's a manipulation tactic with a name and a Wikipedia page. So that's basically what a cult did. I mean, most cults, but we're going to talk about, I gotta give you guys an example. But while at it, let's talk about how traumatic love bombing can be and how that guy is just mimicking something that was born as nothing less than a cult tactic. Apologies for this unsolicited lesson here, but it's important for the context and basically is the context itself. Also, before you ask what all this has to do with horrifying cult recruitment tactics, remember love bombing is traumatic and carries trauma for years, so yeah, it's not pretty. Anyway, the lesson. The expression love bombing was coined by members of the Unification Church of the United States during the 1970s, and it was a recruitment tool. The Unification Church was founded in South Korea in 1954 and had significant followings in Japan and the US, and it has long denied being a cult. Directors say it brainwashes members and solicits funds to enrich the founding family, hand-holding, intimate eye contact, affectionate group singing, leaders tell you what a wonderful person you are. Does any of that sound familiar? The reported effect on people being recruited was that it made them feel needed or cared for, which sounds nice. That's the problem. The moment a recruit shows any interest at all, they get love bombed by the recruiter and the other members, and crucially, it's a coordinated effort usually run by leadership, where long-term members flood a new person with flattery, verbal seduction, affection, but usually non-sexual touching, and enormous attention paid to their every remark. The only difference with your dating history is that it's not one charming guy going too hard, but a room full of people running a play. The method was that recruiters would look for students who seemed alone or sad, and then make that student feel special. A kid who's lonely at a new school, basically. But the Unification Church wasn't the only group using it either. The term was also used by members of the Family International, which you might know better by their previous name, the Children of God. And beyond cults has also been used to describe the tactics that pimps and gang members use to control their victims, which is a good sign that the mechanism itself is the product and the setting just changes around it. But I'm still very curious, why does it work? There's a really tidy explanation from Claire Strutzenberg, a social sciences researcher. She says that communication is naturally reciprocal, and our instinct is to match the other person's level or depth. So when a love bomber says I love you, what they're actually doing is fishing for you to say it back, because hearing I love you too or you're my everything is the whole goal. Anyway, the whole thing is genuinely weird as a concept, because it can also be a good thing. British psychologist Oliver James actually recommends love bombing as a parenting technique for struggling kids, describing it as dedicating one-on-one time to spoiling your child and, within reason, pandering to their every wish. A reporter on the Daily Express tried it on her son in 2011 and said the surprising part wasn't that affection improved his behavior, it was how much her own behavior changed, that it let her see her kid through a fresh lens and soften how she felt towards him. So the same technique is either a mother repairing her relationship with her son, or a room full of strangers on a college campus picking out the loneliest kid there and making him feel, for the first time in a while, like somebody's glad he showed up.
Really, two sides to everything.
I think ultimately it comes down to this. It's fine to seek out companionship, but please make sure that joining doesn't require you to take part in some crazy ritual.
What do we learn from this? End of the story. If anyone requires you to do more than be yourself to be belonged, that's not a place you should be. I think that's a good way to put it short. Because that's how most these people end up in these situations. They end up wanting to be belong to something. And they end up doing way too much, and not, before they know it, they have blackmail against them, or they're doing crazy shit, and they're in a cult now. Oh fuck. So fuck. So yeah. So I think it's a nice way to put it. One man, one jar next. You're fucking funny, dude. You're fucking funny, dude. Yo, y'all run up some Roblox. I'm pretty bored.
November 25th, 1996.
You run up some Roblox? What are we thinking? Yeah, no, everyone add me. Everyone screenshot this shit and join the games I'm in. Okay. Ah, these games look pretty stupid. Monster Runners. Let's play this. We're gonna play this for a bit, and then probably gonna like make a thumbnail, edit video or whatever.
That. It's called Midnight Chasers. I have a bunch of cars that I would let you drive.
I have a bunch of cars I'll let you drive. Yeah, tell that Dorcas to shut up, man. Alright, so this is the game. What's the goal? Where's the monsters? Isn't this shit called Monster Runners because I'm supposed to be running from monsters? What's oh, what the hell? Yo, what the fuck? Dude, this is boring. I'm about to leave. They're just playing. Everyone, quiet the fuck down. Everyone, shut the fuck up. Everyone, shut the fuck up. Everyone. Bro, they're just trying to scare me. There's no way. I thought something was about to happen. This game's baiting me. Yeah, I'm gonna just chill up here and like no monster's gonna get me. Like, this shit's not, you know, I'm gonna go search for this monster now. I'm interested. I'm wondering, is this shit actually, like what's going on? It's a valve? Is that all of it? Is there a game going on right now or what? Okay, I guess we just gotta wait till this timer ends. Then a game will start. Everyone load in. Everyone join. I'll show y'all my name so y'all can join. Hold up. There you go, right here. Everyone join up this game. We're gonna be running this shit up. What the heck? You got a minute? Stupid ass video. Stupid ass video, boy. Stupid ass video. Okay, we got 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Hopefully that signals it well. Two, one. Okay, bet. Okay, we're starting the games now. Hold up. Hold up. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm completing this to show that I'm a goat. Fuck. Okay. We got close. We got close enough. Fuck. Fuck. Okay, we're in a game. Ah, shit. This dude's gonna be chasing us. We gonna chill here. Nah, fuck that. Fuck that. Boom, 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 boom. Just chill here. Fuck you gonna do? I think we're good. Oh, this is my favorite room. See, this is okay. We just gotta keep it balanced. Bro, this game's easy. I can just chill here. Hey, ain't that the monster? Or am I tweaking? Or isn't that dude with the monster? Bro, I'm looking for this dude now. This is getting too easy. Oh crap. Oh crap. So fucking scared. That's the easiest game ever, bro. I'm leaving this. I thought this show was gonna be fun.